Okay, so tonight what we're going to look at is Nisargadatta, I am that. And it's page 414.
I'm going to get my book.
Oh, okay, go ahead, get your phone. And it's chapter 82. It's the name of this chapter is Absolute Perfection is Here and Now.
What was that page again?
Page 414.
414.
Right. Now, I'll probably be skipping around some, but it's the
Okay.
chapter called Absolute Perfection is Here and Now. And
we got a different thing. I got mine is go beyond the I am the body.
all right,
Here
well,
on page 414.
all right, so this is called Absolute Perfection is Here and Now. So I'm going to start reading and
Okay.
maybe you'll find it. The questioner says, the war is on. What is your attitude to it? And Nisargadatta says, in some place or other, in some form or other, the war is always on. Was there a time when there was no war? Some say it is the will of God. Some say it's God's play. It's another way of saying that wars are inevitable and nobody is responsible. Questioner, but what is your attitude? Nisargadatta, why impose attitudes on me? I have no attitude to call my own. Well, surely someone is responsible for this horrible and senseless carnage. Why do people kill each other so readily? Nisargadatta, search for the culprit within. The ideas of me and mine are at the root of all conflict. Be free of them and you will be out of conflict. Questioner, what of it that I'm out of conflict? It will not affect the war. If I am the cause of war, I am ready to be destroyed. Yet it stands to reason that the disappearance of 1,000 like me will not stop wars. They did not start with my birth, nor will end with my death. I am not responsible. Who is? Nisargadatta, strife and struggle are a part of existence. Why don't you inquire who is responsible for existence? Why do you say that existence and conflict are inseparable? Can there be no existence without strife? I need not fight with others to be myself. Will you fight others all the time for your survival as a separate body-mind, a particular name and form? To live, you must destroy. From the moment you were conceived, you started a war with your environment, a merciless war of mutual extermination until death sets you free. Questioner, my question remains unanswered. You are merely describing what I know, life and its sorrows. But who is responsible, you do not say. When I press you, you throw the blame on God or karma or my own greed and fear, which merely invites further questions. Give me the final answer. The final answer is this: nothing is. All is a momentary appearance in the field of the universal consciousness. Continuity as name and form is a mental formation only, easy to dispel. I am asking about the immediate, the transitory, the appearance. Here is a picture of a child killed by soldiers. It is a fact staring at you. You cannot deny it. Now, who is responsible for the death of that child? Nisargadatta. Nobody and everybody. The world is what it contains, and each thing affects all others. We all kill the child, and we all die with it. Every event has innumerable causes and produces numberless effects. It is useless to keep accounts. Nothing is traceable. Well, you people speak of karma and retribution. It is merely a gross approximation. In reality, we are all creators and creatures of each other, causing and bearing each other's burden. So the innocent suffers for the guilty. In our ignorance, we are innocent. In our actions, we are guilty. We sin without knowing and suffer without understanding. Our only hope to stop, to look, to understand, and to get out of the traps of memory. For memory feeds imagination, and imagination generates desire and fear. Well, why do I imagine it all? The light of consciousness passes through the film of memory and throws pictures on your brain. Because of the deficit and disordered state of your brain, what you perceive is distorted and colored by feelings of like and dislike. Make your thinking orderly and free from emotional overtones, and you will see people and things as they are, with clarity and charity. The witness of birth, life, and death is one and the same. It is the witness of pain and of love. For while the existence in limitation and separation is sorrowful, we love it. We love it and hate it at the same time. We fight, we kill, we destroy life and property, and yet we are affectionate and self-sacrificing. We nurse the child tenderly and orphan it too. Our life is full of contradictions, yet we cling to it. This clinging is at the root of everything. Still, it is entirely superficial. We hold on to something or somebody with all our might, and next moment we forget it. Like a child that shapes its mud pies and abandons them lightheartedly. Touch them, it'll scream with anger. Divert the child and he forgets them. Our life is now, and the love of it is now. We love variety, the play of pain and pleasure. We are fascinated by contrasts. For this, we need the opposites and their apparent separation. We enjoy them for a time and then get tired and crave for the peace and silence of pure being. The cosmic heart beats ceaselessly. I am the witness and the heart too. Question. The war is on and there is chaos. And you are being asked to take charge of a feeding center. You are given what is needed. It's only a question of getting through the job. Will you refuse it? Nisargadatta, to work or not to work is one and the same to me. I may take charge or may not. There may be others better endowed for such tasks than I am. Professional caterers, for instance. But my attitude is different. I do not look at death as a calamity, as I do not rejoice the birth of a child. The child is out for trouble, while the dead is out of it. Attachment to life is attachment to sorrow. We love what gives us pain, such as our nature. For me, the moment of death will be a moment of jubilation, not of fear. I cried when I was born, and I shall die laughing. Well, what is the change in consciousness at the moment of death? What change do you expect? When the film projection ends, all remains the same as when it started. The state before you were born was also the state after death, if you remember. I remember nothing. Because you never tried, it's only a question of tuning in the mind. It requires training, of course. Why don't you take part in social work? But I'm doing nothing else all the time. And what is the social work you want me to do? Patchwork is not for me. My stand is clear. Produce to distribute. Feed before you eat. Give before you take. Think of others before you think of yourself. Only a selfless society based on sharing can be stable and happy. This is the only practical solution. If you do not want it, then fight. Is there not a state of absolute perfection which does not decay? Whatever has a beginning must have an end. In the timeless, all is perfect, here and now. But shall we reach the timeless in due course? In due course, we shall come back to the starting point. Time cannot take us out of time, as space cannot take us out of space. All you get by waiting is more waiting. Absolute perfection is here and now, not in some future, near or far. The secret is in action, here and now. It is your behavior that blinds you to yourself. Disregard whatever you think yourself to be and act as if you were absolutely perfect. Whatever your idea of perfection may be, all you need is courage. Where do I find such courage? In yourself, of course. Look within. Well, your grace will help. My grace is telling you now, look within. All you need, you have. Use it. Behave as best you know. Do what you think you should. Don't be afraid of mistakes. You can always correct them. Only intentions matter. The shape things take is not within your power. The motives of your actions are. How can action born from imperfection lead to perfection? Action does not lead to perfection. Perfection is expressed in action. As long as you judge yourself by your expressions, give them utmost attention, when you realize your own being, your behavior will be perfect spontaneously. If I am timelessly perfect, then why was I born at all? What is the purpose of this life? It is like asking, what does it profit gold to be made into an ornament? The ornament gets the color and the beauty of gold. Gold is not enriched. Similarly, reality expressed in action makes the action meaningful and beautiful. What does the real gain through its expressions? What can it gain? Nothing whatsoever. But it is in the nature of love to express itself, to affirm itself, to overcome difficulties. Once you have understood that the world is love in action, you will look at it quite differently. But first, your attitude to suffering must change. Suffering is primarily a call for attention, which itself is a movement of love. More than happiness, love wants growth, the widening and deepening of consciousness and being. Whatever prevents becomes a cause of pain, and love does not shirk from pain. Sattva, the energy that works for righteousness and orderly development, must not be thwarted. When obstructed, it turns against itself and becomes destructive. Whenever love is withheld and suffering allowed to spread, war becomes inevitable. Our indifference to our neighbor's sorrow brings suffering to our door.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It sounds almost like a critique of November 7th.
Mm. Of October 7th?
October 7th.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's really very powerful when he says, we all kill the child and we all die with it
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because we are one.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I am the world and the world is me,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he keeps saying, look within. Go deeper than the superficial that you take yourself to be.
Yeah.
But
Well, you're a product of your consciousness, and that's something that sometimes you have to really understand what stuff is coming from that consciousness. boy, talking about the reading this chapter and some other stuff from KJ, to me, it's like very painful. It's like walking on broken glass. Uh, because, you know, I mean, I'm not a historian and I don't really spend a lot of time, but I've done a little bit of since the earliest writings that we have record of, man has been killing man, whether it's one-on-one or a little tribe or whatever. Uh, and the closest I've come to getting some kind of understanding is KJ and what's that great scientist, the nuclear physicist that he used to
Boom,
Bohm,
discuss,
boom.
David Bohm.
Bohm. And it has something to do with how man has manipulated or messed up this thing we call thinking.
Right.
And it's just taken a wrong turn. And man has been using thinking, and the thinking has created a great deal of the suffering.
Right.
Well, the thinking creates beliefs, and when we attach to a certain belief, we separate your belief, my belief, and there's a need to convince and to win and to feel that I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as long as that continues.
Yep.
Yeah. I remember exactly Bohm and Kay talking about that, and Bohm stating that this capacity that we have, this cognitive capacity, which is just another capacity of the human consciousness, this ability to think, which serves us so well in some situations, we're just not handling it properly at all. And that wrong thinking, he says, is the source of so many problems.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't we don't really look at the fact that we're not thinking properly. Nobody is
We don't even we very, very seldom criticize our ability to think or our thinking.
right.
We assume that it's infallible, and it's not. I mean, in talking about the differences, look at all the different, I don't know whether you want to use a capital G or a small g, gods that exist today.
Mhm. Well, Ugo, I'll just interrupt. Of course, there are courses in critical thinking, and you often hear people say today that the younger generation has lost the capacity to think critically. But even the critical thinking piece doesn't get to the point of the wrong use of thought as a capacity that we're misusing.
It assumes that thinking is good. It assumes
Yeah.
that thinking is correct,
Mhm.
but they don't really get into what is thinking. What is it?
Mhm.
Where does it come from? I mean, and maybe you have to spend some time trying to kick that around and trying to get that straightened out to realize that thinking is nothing more than a reflection of memory,
Mhm.
which memory are all accumulated experiences. So I think if you can accept that and kick that around a little bit, you might be more receptive to being critical of thinking, that it's not the do all or the nth degree of validity, that this is the I'm interrupting myself, but
Well,
because we've developed something that doesn't require the human mind to think, AI. So maybe thinking is not so great and is not something that is as infallible and as most of us assume it to be. I remember in school there at some point taking a course, I think it was part of the economics thing. It was I think it was logic and semantics, where they have
Mhm.
they create, they tell you how to form a syllogism, and the
Yeah.
syllogism, once you set the idea in the syllogism, you can come up whether it's true or false. And if it's true, it's true, it's absolute. And I didn't know how to question it then, but I kind of thought that was a little bit far-fetched. But that's all what we think of
Mhm.
thinking.
Well, it's identification with what we think. See, we see ourselves based on what we think we are, and what the images that we create about ourselves, which is all based on thoughts and experiences.
Yeah.
But mainly, it's held together by thought. And we create an image of ourselves. And that image is how we go out into the world and how we relate to other people. And there's always a need to protect that image or to expand that image. And
Yeah,
so,
because we believe that's who we are.
that's right. That's right. So we never get deeper. We don't get past that. We don't seem to get beyond that.
We've been conditioned that way. That's another, like, something really important concept that has to come into the discussion to understand what we're talking about. We're not born with this stuff. Now, there may be some things, there may be some degree of, yes, we're born with whatever, but I don't think we're born with specific feelings. We're born with the senses, but not necessarily the feelings. And we're brought up in an environment, and in that environment, the experiences are clouded. You're not seeing the experience what it is. You're more or less conditioned to see certain things.
Mhm.
Well,
And
of
you're conditioned
course.
to see, um, fresh water is good, blue skies are gray, red is warm, all kinds of things. I can't really be specific about it, but that kind of clouds your experience. So we're not really experiencing what is. We're experiencing an idea that we get from somebody else of what is.
Of
That's
course.
right, of
And,
course.
and that's the thing that causes a lot of problems,
Right.
because we don't base thinking on fact.
Mhm.
Fact is what is. There's no duality in fact. There's no this or that. It's only a fact is always singular, right? So
Yeah.
if we could figure out how to base thinking on fact, then
Well,
especially in the psychological things, the psychological
yes, yes.
suffering part of it, then we wouldn't be subjected to that. Because why is certain parts of science like mathematics,
Right.
why is that?
So I think what's important is seeing or observing. How do we see or how do we observe something? Are we observing another person? Are we observing nature? Whatever it is we're observing, are we observing it through the
Mostly not.
spectrum of this me, through the lens of this me, this
Yep.
conditioned entity with certain beliefs and certain values? Are we seeing and observing through that lens? Or
Yes.
are we seeing without the lens of the me and just have pure, as Krishnamurti says, choiceless awareness, pure awareness,
There's no observer.
and let that be.
It's only observing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then
And
there's
that-
no
And
observer.
then that's when you get to the love. He ends by talking about love.
Well, because he's equating love with reality.
Right.
Reality, he's saying, is love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line. The
Mhm.
true reality. And it's not love that's an opposite of hate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different.
No, when thought is in
Sense
its
of it.
right place, you'll have love. right? When thought is in its right place. If you just use thought as a factual barometer, as a factual pointer, if thought wasn't tied up in my image of myself,
Yes,
right?
right.
Then it would play a much more limited role in my manifestation in the world, and my manifestation in the world would manifest more of a loving nature.
So wasn't essentially the business of thought was to be a pointer
Mhm.
toward love, to be a pointer to that which is sane and whole and beautiful and right.
Mhm.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be doing? And so then we do just become an instrument
Mhm. Mhm.
and an openness where thought can then point to right action,
Mhm.
to be
Well-
appointed toward love.
Well, Nisargadatta is using point thought right now in this thing to point you in the right direction.
That's right.
And the
that's
right direction, he winds up talking about love.
Yes, 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 yes.
What was that? Feed,
Yes.
give
More than
happiness,
happiness.
right?
More than happiness. Love wants growth, the widening and deepening of consciousness and of being.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
Well,
prevents becomes a cause of pain.
So
And
hold on.
love does not shirk from pain.
The misuse of thought shrinks my consciousness and shrinks my being,
Yes.
right?
so that another way of looking
Yes.
at this thing, you're in the state of love when you can pause thought, when you can
Right.
Yes.
pause thought.
That's
That's
right.
Because when you pause thought, you allow yourself, the self sees reality, because
Mhm.
it's not going through the eye of the me.
That's
Mhm. Just like he
That
said.
took me a long time to get a handle on, because
Mhm.
love, it's been so conditioned. I mean, there's so many. It's mostly a sensual implication.
Mhm.
You're
Yes.
talking about love,
Right.
and then there's but so that's from what I can understand, what like Mr. Gadatta and Krishnamurti and others, it's love is allowing your true self to be by pausing thought, not having any feelings or judgments or not thinking.
Right. Ugo.
And then,
He says here, what is it about your neighbor's door?
Oh, our indifference to our neighbor's sorrow brings suffering to our door.
What makes me indifferent to my neighbor's suffering is all the thoughts and beliefs I have about him or her.
Well, of course.
Right. So sure.
Yes.
Without all that interference of thought, your response is more spontaneous and natural and loving. And that's the higher understanding of love. Of course, Hugo.
Yep. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe we should leave it there for tonight.
Okay.
So
thank you so much for showing
yeah.
up,
Thank
guys.
you,
Really,
dear.
good,
Thank
good,
you.
Hugo.
Okay.
I can't express how humbled I am that you folks pay so much attention, are so dedicated, are so loving.
Oh,
in
thank you, Hugo.
what
Thank
you
Well,
do.
look, so we'll be in touch,
Okay,
right?
and you're on to Florida. Have a good trip down there and enjoy yourselves.
Okay.
Thank
Will you do some zooming from Florida or?
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
probably, yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Good.
Thank you
good.
very much, folks. Have a
Thank you.
lovely,
Be well.
lovely
Thank you.
Christmas and wonderful New
Yes.
Year.
You
Okay.
too. You too.
Baci, baci a tutti, eh? Ciao, belli.
Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.